Hey guys, my name is Josiah Peoples. I'm a product designer and a self-taught software developer. I was able to get into software development in about 3 months, so I thought I'd share some insights on how I got there, some of my struggles, and how much I made when I initially started. So let's get into it. I think my journey started in 2008, 2009, if you want to be more accurate. I know I'm an old fogey. It was right after the financial crisis, and I had lost my job. I was working in an automotive factory on the third shift. I start at 12 o'clock at night, get up at 7 a.m. in the morning, and then head to my dishwashing job. And so I was really just looking for a switch, and I was kind of happy that I got laid off, and was trying to figure out how I could basically improve myself. It wasn't until I actually went back to work that I actually started learning about graphic design, which is actually where I started. So after I got out of a 2-year college, I was again just looking for work, trying to figure out what to do, just trying to figure out how to pay for stuff. And I really wanted to actually get back into my initial degree, which was mechanical engineering, but I needed some money, it was expensive, so I decided to pick up a job. They called me back from that automotive company I was working at. They asked if I wanted to again work on the floor. I said yes, but they saw that I had a semester of mechanical engineering experience basically, and they asked me if I wanted to work in quality engineering, and I was like yes, anything to get me out of the third shift, 12 a.m. to 7 a.m. shift, I'll do it. So I joined the quality control department, and I started learning about Kanban systems, started learning about how the automotive factory worked. I actually built bumpers and helped improve that process. Again, they were still reshuffling and trying to reconstruct themselves financially after the 2008 crash. So I was moved over into the corporate office just to work on a simple, basically data entry project. But the creative director saw that, again, I had been tinkering around in Photoshop. I put that on my resume when I got hired. It was Photoshop. It was like Photoshop 3, I think, in 2005, but he saw I had some Photoshop experience and asked me if I could help him out on this project. I said yes, and that project led into a job offer. He asked me if I wanted to help on the associate graphic designer, something. It was a really long title, but it basically meant just a helping hand in the creative department. I jumped on the opportunity. Anything to get out of being on the plant floor, around heavy machinery. Working in an office sounded nice, sounded quieter, so I took the job. Again, didn't have a design degree experience at the time, but I did work out something where he said if I was going to be able to work there and I wanted to get a raise, I should go back to school and get my at least a associate's in design. So I did. I worked full time and I started taking classes at night to get my associates in design, and so it took me about 3 years on and off, just because night school was a little rough, and for some reason community colleges don't provide all their courses that you need to graduate within 2 years. You kind of have to pick and choose where you want to be, and pick and choose what courses are going to get you close, and then that third year is where you can actually have those last final courses offered to you to finish your degree. So long story short, I would work full time. In between work as a designer, I would go to school for design. So it was really cool to be able to learn it, go practice it, or more importantly, practice it in the real world, and then go back to school and say, hey, this isn't actually what we're actually doing. So after I got my degree in graphic design, I started producing web pages and mock-ups for the company. But no one could build them. No one had any chops in our department to build these websites that they wanted to, see visuals for. And so I took it upon myself. I said, hey, I'll start learning myself. So did the same process. I went back to school. I took one class in Java. I got a B, I think, and I decided that's enough. I didn't want to do the whole computer science course, and basically self-taught. I would I would download books, if you will, and then print them off at our office and go learn. So I think the first book I printed off was CSS3 from O'Reilly's, and I would stay late after work and just use our high quality printer upstairs and print off hundreds of pages. Sorry to the guys, but it was great for me to go back home, take it, and just basically practice and read. So it was I was basically my practice. My practice at night. I would just give myself design challenges. I would go design something. I was like, I can actually build this in CSS, and if I couldn't, I would try to dive deeper, and if I could, I would just move on to the next chapter. And I did that over and over again until I actually got an offer at work to build a real project. But unfortunately, that wasn't in CSS or JavaScript or even HTML. It was in a CMS, a content management system called Drupal. And Drupal's built in PHP, God forbid. So because I was the only person building it, I decided to teach myself PHP just by inspecting, going into the inspection tab, looking at a code snippet that I wouldn't understand, and then trying to reverse engineer it and Google it. Terrible process. Would not recommend for anyone, but it did help me basically learn a lot quicker about how modules work. I don't use PHP as much as anymore, of course. I'm a sane man and moved over to JavaScript, but I'll get to that point. So after I did that project in Drupal, I was able to launch it. It took me a little longer than I thought to basically how to build custom modules. It was, if you can think of WordPress, but worse, if you will. So after I launched this security system application, I thought to myself, I really want more. I liked building applications. I liked designing them and then actually bringing them into fruition. And so I started my own side business. I called myself a web developer. I made a little site on a free site builder and put it out there in the world. I printed business cards, if you will. This is how how archaic I am. I actually printed my own business cards and just started handing it out to random people. Someone actually saw them outside of my office and they contacted me. It was from the university's baseball team, and that was my first side business contract. I never had built a full site before. I just told people I could, and so I did my whole design process, did the research, did the wireframes and the mock-ups, and started using the skills that I gathered from the books I was downloading and printing off to figure out how to build a site that was big enough for this baseball team. And I had a great time. I got several contracts like that, and I really was enjoying myself, and to the point where I think I can do this full time. So I changed my name on my resume. I literally just changed my title from I think I was a junior graphic designer associate to web developer, and start sending out applications. I did not know if I was getting any feedback. I did not know if anyone was even interested. I know I had an appetite. I wanted some more challenge, and I just tried. So I was actually, after my first day of being married is where I got my first call back. I submitted my applications about 3 weeks before being married, just because I really was looking to do something more for my future family. I enjoyed graphic design, but I knew there was a better, more stable financial future with software development. I didn't know how much at the time. I just heard whispers that you could make more, and I wanted to make more. I think it's a fine motivator to want to take care of your family, and it really did push me to stretch myself. And so the first job to call me back was Jimmy John's. I got an offer for a junior web developer position at Jimmy John's, and I was so excited that I took the offer to my work to show my coworkers, and the IT manager walked by as I was talking about it, and he stopped and said, "Hey, are you interested in development? I think we have a position open here." So that week I got back after my honeymoon. I had 2 job offers just because I was talking about wanting to go into development. After talking to my wife, we decided let's stay with the company that I know because I'm familiar, and I moved over into the IT department. I took over as the SharePoint developer. I would not recommend it, but again, take what you can get. I was in charge of basically making apps on SharePoint function like real apps, using SharePoint's very archaic data tables to generate basically backends for websites. Had an amazing time facilitating some good user research sessions. Again, I really leaned heavily on my design skills to fill in the gaps for my web development skills. So being able to think through the design process to prototype, to put something in front of a user first to get validation of an idea, and then basically breaking that down into components to go build. I think it was a fantastic process for me, because sometimes I might get stuck, but if you can break things down into its smallest piece, focus on building that first, it's way easier to tackle that project. I think it's called eating an elephant. You eat an elephant just one bite at a time. So eventually I was able to finish projects by breaking it down to its smallest component, really designing the smallest thing, and then trying to see what the problems was, what the functions were around that smallest component. And so yeah, that's essentially how I accidentally fell into software development. My time at my automotive company was fantastic, and again, I just took a risk. I was a software developer at Expedia right after that because I had heard someone needed a web designer. I put it out there. I took a risk and I got a call back. So in 2 years, I went from just being a designer to being a SharePoint developer to working at Expedia as a senior software web designer, and eventually going full-time into software for about go and study, break down what you really enjoy about software, and then learn. Fail. I guess I think that's the biggest thing I could say is just try to fail. Try to put yourself out there and see where you can fail at. I think that's the quickest way to learn. I think it's the fastest way to get feedback, honest feedback when you hit a roadblock. But it works out eventually. Software is a great way to be. I didn't know a lot of people in software at the time. I didn't know anyone actually. There was a whisper. I heard someone worked in software next to me, and then I accidentally Googled it. So I encourage you, if you think you can't, if you have doubts about even trying, just try. The only thing that can happen, someone says no. And so yeah, that's kind of my story, how I fell into software design, software engineering from design. And stay tuned for more about the story and where I'm going to try to go next.